Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Foreign Currencies with Scott. Today is Sunday, December 7th, and we're going to take a look at the last two trading days of last week, December 4th and 5th. Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you that on December 4th, there were no trades, there was no position possible, and pretty much a typical no trade scenario. So I don't even have a clip to show you that. I do have a clip for Friday, however, and we did make an entry and we're going to call it a wash. I think we ended up like maybe $9, but it won't even go into the win loss column because basically we just punted. So I'll give you the details of the trade in the following clip, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit more because after October and November, and how I described October as being a period of greed and November being a period of fear, I vowed going into December that December would be a period in which we had neither greed nor fear. We would simply follow the rules, stick with them, be disciplined, and that would be that. So, of course, on Friday, I had an episode of fear. So, this is what we want to try to avoid. So, what happened was there was a good position to enter. And so I entered the trade, and as you'll see in the clip, it's going down back to the New York close. And the pair got within just a couple of pips of reaching that point, but it didn't quite touch the New York close. So it started heading back up. Now, what you don't want to happen in this scenario is to almost get your take profit and to turn around, go all the way back past your entry point, and then hit your stop loss and have a loss. So I set the stop loss just a few dollars improvement over the entry point, and that is what happened. So we got out with, say, a $9 win. However, I don't consider it a win, and I do consider it an episode of fear because what happened was when the pair started moving back up away from the New York close, it did get to my entry point and it did get to the 30 pips away point, but that served as resistance. And the pair kind of stalled there. And eventually it turned around, went back down, went below the New York entry price. So it would have been a winner. Now, could it have turned around, gone up, and stayed going up? Yes, of course. But the key here is I did not stick with the plan, which is you put the entry in and you walk away. So I looked at it, I exhibited some fear. I got out with a $9 profit, but really for where we're at now after starting in July, that's kind of a loss because it should have been a win and it wasn't. So we're going to keep an eye out on this greed and fear, try to work through it, try to change our behavior, and see if we can stick with the plan. Okay, that's it for the first week of December. So we're about to go into the second week of December. We'll see how that goes. Until then, good trading, everyone. All right, so we're going to take a look at Friday, December 5th. So again, that vertical bar on the left-hand side of the screen represents the New York close. And let's see what happened after the New York close. You can see that we hovered around that New York close. And then here after 2100, let's close up on that after 2200, you can see it started moving up. We crossed into Friday, and then between 2 and 4 a.m., we breached the 30 pips above mark. So even though at 3 a.m. we were below it, you can see that we moved back up between 3 and 4 and we were above it. So that was actually a good entry point because now we were more than 30 pips away. And what's really nice about this particular trade is that, so after 3 a.m., you can see the green candles going up and we go above the 30 pip mark. What you'll also notice is that high is lower than the previous high before 3 a.m. So this is a good sign that that's acting as a bit of resistance. And we would put in a trade now to go down back to the New York close, and 20 pips away would be higher and as our stop loss, and we would see that that's higher than we've been for the day, and so a little tough to get to. So we did make this trade. the pair immediately started going down, and there it reached the New York close. But this is where it gets interesting. You will see if you close up here on this particular time, right there at 6:35, it did not quite reach the close. So the lowest there on the little box that popped up is 133 and 27.9. And you'll see just below the box to the left, 133 and 27.4. So a half a pip or 5 pipettes, it did not make it. So it did not get to our take profit and did not close out. So if we had hung on, you'll notice that the pair went back up, actually breached the 30 pip above mark. But let me just come out a little bit. I'll have to come out a lot. It did not breach it by much. And then finally, after 11 a.m., it did go back down and it did get below. So for example, if we take this bar right here, we'll see that it was the lowest was 133.16. So 1.6 is definitely lower than 2.7. So we would have made our expected profit on this trade. However, fear entered on this day, unfortunately. And what fear did was say, oh, look at this. I almost made it out, but I didn't. And now the pair is heading back up. So what I'll do, fear said, is because I entered at this 30 pip above mark, I'm just going to set a stop loss for right around there, maybe making a couple of bucks. And that way, if it goes up that high, I'll just get out and not risk it having go all the way up the 20 more pips for a loss. So that is what we did. And at this time period, then it did breach that line, and we were stop lossed out with a small profit. But again, fear did that. Fear put in that change stop loss. And as a result, we ended up with a $9 gain instead of a $72 gain. So as we go to the next week of December, we're going to try to stick with more discipline. And again, our watch phrase for December is we will trade with neither greed nor fear. And that will be our aim.